So you basically got these camps in these other states. And like a lot of camps, they like going out and they go and teach what they taught by their leaders, which most of the time is outside of the gospel. And instead of behaving like disciples the way they supposed to and following the words of Christ, they go out to provoke Esau. And when Esau comes up to the camp, you got Edomites out here that like to argue with the camps or to provoke, to really cause themselves harm. There's almost like a sadomasochistic type death wish thing. So you got this guy, some tall Edomite. He looked like he could be part of Make America Great Again coalition. And he rolled up to this camp in Phoenix. Now, this is an open carry state. And even though it's open carry, a lot of brothers and sisters use this as an excuse to just be wicked. Because you going against and violating what Yahweh Shah said in the scriptures, where he said, then said Jesus, this is Matthew 26:52. Then said Jesus unto him, put up again thy sword into his place, for all they that take up the sword shall perish with the sword. So any man, this is a commandment of Christ. He told Peter, the top disciple, who he called a rock, not to take up any swords. All right. Thinkest thou that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels? So they're not relying on spiritual power. They're coming like this is a game. And then you got people out here watching the camps, not just veteran members of the organization, but you got people that they understand the nationalistic views of Israel, and you got brothers that understand the spiritual views of Israel, and they look to benefit from the organizations doing wicked stuff against the gospel, so they could say, see, they're like a terrorist organization. They're a Nazi organization, a black Nazi organization. And I tell you, brothers that's in the Sakari camp in Phoenix, that's in this video, you going the wrong route. You shouldn't be carrying at all. The disciples relied on faith, because when you study about the disciples, the Lord commanded them not to carry purse, script, or staff. And what's happening, y'all so busy want to fight Esau. Y'all want to fight. You lusting to fight and kill Esau, that you're going to get what you want sooner or later. What's going to happen is you see in this clip, this Edomite is drawn, like he's acting like he's going to draw, but he's acting like he's going to draw because they went to draw first. They went to draw first, and you can't be fronting out here in these groups, because what if the guy goes back and get a posse of Edomites and they roll up with AR-15s? Then you just gonna be another statistic. And they show you that nerdy looking guy with the glasses. He thinks it's a game, because this is an immature camp. And this the problem when you got bad Pharisee leaders leading, like Alazar, the Sakaris leading Israel. These sick men and sick shepherds leading other sheep to the slaughter, because they're fronting like they're going to pull guns. And last time, it was one video a couple of years back, maybe 4 or 5 years back, where Alazar's camp beat on this Edomite, right? He beat on the Edomite. The Edomite provoked him to beat him up. So they beat him up. And then next thing you know, in San Diego, some little dyke cop that was like 4 feet tall rolled up on Alazar with a gun and made him throw his staff down. And he's bragging like he's a big Levite, but he had to throw his staff down on the ground and then turn into a serpent like Moses. All right. And this show you he has no spiritual power to to basically back these Edomites up. The Lord ain't with these camps that's dealing with Phariseeism. Why? Because you ain't teaching what is the fruits of the Spirit. You not teaching the commandments of Christ. Now, I just showed this commandment in the Bible where Christ told them, don't take, he that liveth by the sword shall die by the sword. All right. So you got all these camps going out here to participate in folly. All right. And then they giving guns. They got everybody, they smiling. But when those bullets hit those Sakari shirts and hit Israelite bodies, then they going to know. Because it causes death. All right. All right. And you supposed to be for life. And that's the problem with following false teachers and false apostles. Because the Sakari movement is a splinter group of GMS. And they're just carrying on a legacy of their predecessors. Because GMS was bad, and it went under after that rape doctrine of little girls. And then now you got this group and these guys acting like clowns. All right. And all these groups is rocking these shirts and stuff. And that's what's pulling people into these groups. A shirt don't make you an Israelite. And a shirt don't make you a disciple. You have to change yourself internally. You gotta be born again in the Spirit. You ain't see, and even your predecessors, you didn't see them. They would talk about martial arts. When you go back to Marshall and the first school, Marshall and them would compel brothers to learn martial arts. They are compelled, and they didn't just when they was on camps on tough streets during the crack epidemic of the 90s. You had tough people walking around, crazy people walking around. They wasn't out there just rolling up and pushing Edomites and try to provoke a response. Because if they shot that Edomite, then what you're doing is you're going to cause a chain reaction where all the camps going to be marked as a terrorist organization, which they already technically are. And this is just brothers from the past coming back to warn you of your folly, because this is stupid. They use the word to go out on the street. You teaching the history, but you want to vent. A lot of these cats just want to vent. They not really there because they believe in Christ. They believe in Christ. And then you got these people under white supremacist Christianity that come into the business of Israel to try to make a name for themselves which is like this guy, Vocab Malone, uh, John Mark Reiser, Reiser. He has a Jewish name. He's like some type of Jewish Italian guy. You see, he's styling his beard, kind of trying to look like an Israelite, so he could step to the camps and technically make money on his side and use it to bolster himself. All right, and then you got this guy faithful to God that's with him, and um I believe he's a Puerto Rican, an Ephraimite, but he didn't come out and show himself for a long time because he's light complexion, so people were saying that he was an Edomite. But I don't really care what he is. It's just that when I talked to him in the past, he was coming trying to make like the historical part of the scriptures is not valid. Like, okay, we under the faith, but when you get into the color part and when you get into the part that we Israel, that's not valid, basically. And he's a shady individual. Just put it like that. He's kind of weird to me because you gotta understand what if faithful need to stand on his own structure if he's going to teach. Why attach yourself to this man? Like Vocab, he didn't really, in my opinion, acknowledge that there's Israelites that believe in the gospel, and that he just basically came out and was like, all y'all together. And that's not true. The Israelites that's in the gospel are hated by the Israelites that's still under the Old Testament law of Moses and Phariseeism. So to me, he just used this as a structure to build his own following out in Phoenix, for his church and for his movement that he got. All right. They which they call themselves street apologists. All right. And he came out first, he was coming out with these Eminem type rap videos from his college and bouncing around and using the black hip hop thing to kind of like push himself out there. Then he was famous for it was a killing of where a Muslim tried to go out and do a terrorist act, and I think he got killed. So you gotta watch dudes like him, because these are the dudes that agents really contact when they want to get dirt on groups. All right, they contact dudes like this, and they basically snitch you out because on one hand, it's fear of a black planet, and it's fear of reap what you sow, because he's basically telling people, well, everybody has a right to open carry except this group. They don't have a right to open carry. Putting a gun in the Israelites' hand is not a good thing. And I agree on one sense, because if you full with anger and hatred, and you got people cultivating that anger and hatred, and that's the same thing that happened to a lot of brothers in One West. They cultivated that anger and hatred in us, that you already have bias towards the so-called white man for things that he did. And then you basically unleashing a person into a pit bull mode upon society. And each individual person has a life, and they have to deal with what they their daily life, what they have to deal with in this society. They have to navigate society. And not only that, whenever you deal with guns, you jeopardize other people's lives, because if you miss your target, you could hit other people, kill other people, and now be another scandal. All right, because you don't, and then you don't want law enforcement rolling up on you and saying, yo, um you guys are all under arrest, y'all made terroristic threats, we got pictures of you with guns. Because they did that. There was a Muslim guy, and he was at a firing range with some friends, and they used his pictures from the firing range and put him in jail for almost 8 years just off the pictures, because they were saying he was a threat. He was a terroristic threat. And this is the same thing that goes on, with these guys. So a lot of the stuff that, let's see if I could get, a lot of the stuff they was saying was true. Like, you see this guy, it's like a camp carrying, a camp is already hyped enough. They already hyped enough. You adding a gun into the equation is like a bad thing. And then you have, like I said, I seen this personally. You have people that come out and they look to pick fights. They want you to beat them to death. Some people look for fights. They want to be beat bloody. They want to be beat to the point where it's almost like death by suicide. Let me pick these people to commit suicide. So anytime you got a group coming out with firearms doing that, it's like asking for it. It's like you asking to go and get into something ugly with people. And like, I'll give you an example. You had a general back in the 1990s called General Ariala. He rose up most of the camps that's out in California, that even camps near San Diego, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Ariala, instead of arguing with this guy, he seen that the guy would side with him, and then they had brought on this other Sakari member. And they brought this ex-Sakari member in to testify, right? But instead of Ariala arguing or fighting with the guy, he would see if they could come to a common ground with the Edomite and have him donate to the camp. Or he'll have them do some side thing, print up flyers for the camp. In other words, he would take their anger and let them do something to promote the organization. He wouldn't just go into fighting. I even witnessed Ariala got kicked by Edomite in the leg. You know what he did? He had a cop come and lock him up. He didn't fight him. He said, I'm going to let your own system lock you up. And they locked him up. So this is the difference with the camps then and the camps now. A lot of these camps, they have a street gang mentality, and and when you see the whole thing, yeah, he got hyped, but they push him first. They provoked the fight. Then as soon as the fight started going into high gear, they started grabbing for weapons. So So he was saying, kill me, kill me. Let me get back. I'm going to go back to, I'll put the volume this time to show you how.
So that whatever it is, we don't know. And remember, he said he didn't know whether he had a knife or a gun. And he went to the back, not the front. But he never pulled anything out. So watch this. And then this guy decides to push him too.
Don't get my face.
Are these men of the Lord? Are these men of the Lord, people?
You just had it, man, where he was reaching the dude.
Yeah. I'm gonna show it again.
Angle.
Yeah, what? You're gonna see him come out. He's the first one who's got his hand on the pump. Watch.
Enslaved for the last time. George people that robbed and murdered. Get the fuck out of my face. Don't get in my face. Don't get in my face. Don't get in my face. Motherfucker.
So it's the back. I think he's just fronting because he sees what's popping off. Watch this.
You trying to die tonight? Yeah. What's up? What's up?
Shoot me, motherfucker.
So see, you got these camps. They it's like you see it's just one Edomite, and I seen this before in New York when Bun Lawyer was alive. I seen the same thing in New York. He provoked an argument with a guy. They started pushing each other. He's like, hit me. And then he started pushing each other. Then he banged the guy over the head with a stick, with a big staff. He hit him in the head. And one of the brothers from the, not one lawyer, but one of the brothers from the camps, they started fighting with this one guy, and they hit him over the head with the staff. And then the camp ended up feeling bad about it, because it's like when he got hit with the stick, his friend grabbed the top of his head, and everybody was like, ouch, like ouch, because it's still a human condition. When you get down into all this stuff, people are still human beings. You wouldn't want to see a lot of Israelites talk crap, but if they seen people just dying, little kids getting killed, they wouldn't allow that, because that is the upright, righteous spirit that Christ is trying to cultivate in us. We're supposed to be higher than these things. You're supposed to understand that. Why we in captivity? Why was this system created? And we supposed to be using the fruits of the spirit to deal with a lot of the issues that we have here in America. And I'm just being truthful. A lot of your old generals, you go back, Yahshua, Aharon, street teachers like Rakah, street teachers like Tahar, even Tahar. But even though I heard that in Tahar's thing, they beat up a Edomite one time and he ended up dying, but they never got charged for it. All right, they never got charged for it. He got beat up by the camp and people outside the camp, and then God died after a couple of months of being in a coma. But he never got charged for it, because people, they let that stuff go, man. They let that stuff go. They teach young men these things. And these things are outside of the gospel. All right. When you hear about dashing little kids to the stones and that ravishing their women and all this stuff, those are the people that are outside of the gospel, outside of the word of the Lord, that don't have sense. That's in demonic niggerism. that's going to be doing those things because they don't have self-control of their mind. All right. The saints, you didn't read in none of the scriptures about the disciples getting into sword fights like Channel 5 karate flicks. They wasn't doing that. All right. And you got these apologetics dudes, like you had this brother right here that left the organization, and Vocab is just using these dudes so he could write books and do whatever to make money for his house and for his family. All right. That's how he's doing. He's using these dudes to back him up. All right. And why these organizations, they always got to have some type of, it's like they always have to have some form of white leader. You know, it's like he ain't really come to save the day. He came to really, he see an opportunity to take advantage, because all he's talking about basically is yo, brothers that's in the gospel, we still acknowledge that we Israelites. We still acknowledge that you gotta know also the historical part of the scriptures. I noticed that with a lot of white Christians, like when you start going into those things, they don't want to acknowledge that stuff. All right. But if we know the truth is that the major characters of the Bible are black, then why is the problem? What's the problem in the disconnect? That's part of the truth. The Lord said we should worship him in spirit and in truth. When black people thought that Christ was a so-called white man, we followed, we believed. All right. So once we found out the other side of the truth, that he's a black man, which is the real truth, we follow and we believe. But if you ask them, they're going to give you like 20 answers. All right. And he's been just leeching off of basically Israel so he could say, see, you got to watch these guys over here. Watch them. Yeah, you got to watch them. But I just want you brothers to change. I want you brothers to change and be better men and come into the discipleship in the gospel. All right. These men want you locked up. A lot of these dudes like Vocab, they just want you locked up. They want you to be in a concentration camp. That's what they want. All right. And they want to break the prophecies that's going to come about on this country. And that's not going to happen. You can't slow down the prophecies because we already in it. And this Neo SOT, your brother Adiola, original Sons of Thunder, Brooklyn, and you know, once again, original Sons of Thunder, brother Adiola, aka Neo SOT, right? Coming at you once again, yo. Christ is King. Bless all the brothers and sisters out there. You brothers wake up and stop being foolish and using these words. Leave these Pharisee camps. Leave these Pharisee camps alone. All right? Get your minds right. All right? And get in the gospel. All right? It's time for reformation. All right? Christ is King. Grace, peace, and love.